This video covers the concept of velocity. Velocity is simply the distance an object travels in a particular direction over a certain period of time. Velocity is just simply speed with a particular direction, and this keyword direction here suggests to you that velocity is a vector, which means that the direction that the object travels is important for the velocity. The equation for average velocity is as shown. The variable for velocity is a lowercase v, and it is equal to the displacement of an object divided by the time it took for the object to undergo that particular displacement. The units for velocity are meters per second, which can be written as m over s. Let's do an example. Antonia is at the position x equals 2 meters, and over the next 10 seconds moves to the point x equals 7 meters. What is her average velocity? Our average velocity equation is as shown, and we can expand this displacement portion of the equation, and we find that the average velocity is equal to the final position minus the initial position divided by time. Antonia's final position was 7 meters, her initial position was 2 meters, and it took Antonia 10 seconds to travel this distance. We can then simplify this equation with our math skills, and we find that the average velocity is 0.5 meters per second. Let's do another example. Maria is at the position x equals 12 meters. She then begins to move at an average velocity of negative 2 meters per second. What is Maria's position after 5 seconds? Notice here that we already know the average velocity. Instead, we want to find Maria's final position. Take note here that her velocity is also negative 2 meters per second. Since this is a negative velocity, we know that Maria is traveling in the negative direction. So we can assume that her final position is going to be less than her initial position of 12. We have our equation for average velocity, and once again we can expand this equation. Rereading this problem, let's label the particular variables. Maria is at the position x equals 12 meters, so we know that this is her initial position. She then begins to move at an average velocity of negative 2 meters per second, so we know that this is her average velocity. And then we want to find her position after 5 seconds. So we know that time is 5 seconds. So let's plug these variables into our equation, and we end up with this equation with one unknown. We must solve this equation if we want to find the value for her final position. First, we must multiply each side by 5. Then we must add 12 to each side, and we find that the final position is 2 meters. This value makes sense since we know that Maria went from the position 12 meters to 2 meters. So since her position decreased, she should then be traveling in the negative direction, which would give her a negative velocity, which we have.